All right, so the first order of business over here is to round out these corners. Um, this is a really easy, straightforward process, and we do that with I was about to say jQuery. No, it's just CSS's border radius attribute. So nice and easy to use. We don't even actually, I think we defined a border already, but we don't need a border. So it could actually just do an invisible border too. So, well, let's look at it in action. Clearly, I have a border set here already, so it's going to kind of define these rounded corners a little bit better. And well, here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to go to the element that I want to do this to, and I want to do this to my container class, right? Or my container div. And here it is in my CSS, and the code is beautifully straightforward. Border, radius, and I'm going to give it 10 pixels. Now, if you increase the amount, you'll get bigger curves, and if you have a smaller amount, they're more subtle. So at border 10 pixels, here's what it's going to look like. So keep your eye on the corners, and here's a refresh. There you go. So now we have some rounded corners. And like I was saying, if I wanted to really round them out, let's say, I don't know, something extreme like 70. Well, look at that. You could turn this almost into like an oval if you really wanted to work with it. So now border radius has a couple more options too. You don't necessarily need to have each corner the same exact curve. You could define a curve for each one, and there's an easy shorthand way to do that. If we just go to border radius right here, you could just think that the first value would be the top left, the second value would be the top right, the third value the bottom right, and the fourth value bottom left. So it kind of goes clockwise. So what I'm saying is, let's say that we'll leave 70 pixels, then we'll go 10 pixels, then we'll go 30 pixels, and then we'll go 0 pixels, just to really get some diversity in these things. So I'll go back to my page, and when I refresh it, well, there you go. Here's the biggest curve, top right, which is 70. Then we have the smallest of the bunch, which is 10 pixels. The second largest, which is 30, and then absolutely no corners on there. And it's cool. It kind of retains its shape, kind of completely. I mean, so it works. Now, um, their border radius has a lot of options, and it's really up to you to check them out. I showed you kind of the most basic, where we have what's kind of a symmetrical uh, border over here. So it's saying 10 and 10 because it's kind of giving you like a measurement of where it's at. But let me see. I loaded up a graphic of it somewhere over here in my many windows I had loaded up. Um, well, anyway, essentially, if you investigate border radius, you'll see that we have, here we go, you have a lot of different ways to approach this, and you could actually even define how you want the border to be with two values. And here's what I'm talking about. If I go, no, before I move on, let me just show you a graphic that I recall where I saw it. This is going to help you understand what I'm talking about. When you say something like border radius 10, this is how it's working. It's just saying 10 pixels from where the curve ends, and you put it right there. But I mean, if you wanted to change that slope, well, you're going to have to define a slope for each one. And here's the CSS code for it, right? It says border top left radius. And then if you did 100 pixels to 50, it's saying 100 pixels this way, 250 pixels that way, and it's going to define the curve based on its algorithm that way. So in short, I don't want to really digress to all the nuances of border radius, but if you want to curve a corner, you have a lot of options. So just look into it. And there's no shortage of ways you can manipulate this property to get the look you're going for. Now, here's the caveat. I'm going to refresh this. This is IE9, and border radius works just fine in IE9. But when you go back, and I'm going to go back to IE8, well, guess what? Border radius doesn't work anymore. Just so you know, what I did is in IE9, this little cog here, the tools option, you have F12 developer tools, and if you change your browser in document mode to one of the options it has, you could mimic what your page is going to look like in those browsers. So anything prior to IE9, border radius doesn't show. So you have some options. Now, the first option is do nothing about it. Now, if you do nothing about it, it's really a progressive enhancement, right? Not having the rounded corners, I'm assuming in the majority of implementations, isn't going to have any usability or readability issues associated with it. It looks better with rounded corners, but you don't have it, so whatever. The other option is to actually go with a JavaScript that will round out the corners for you. Corners.js is one example, and jQuery Corner is another example. And they're pretty straightforward to use. You kind of just target the element, and well, obviously first you download the plugin, you target it with this function called corners, and it'll give you rounded corners. All of these solutions are just fine. They all have their little nuances. I played around with Corners.js. I had inconsistent results, honestly. And jQuery Corners, well, it doesn't actually do as good as a job as CSS because these corners are actually generated colors. So if you have a solid color background, these corners are going to look just fine. But if you have a pattern like I have on mine, essentially if you were to round out a corner like I'm doing right over here to the top left, it's still actually a square. So this is going to be a solid color, and it messes up my pattern background. So anyway, you got to pick and choose your battles, and you know how badly you need those rounded corners to appear in IE8. So work with it accordingly.